now we have our next speaker, Edwin Lin. Edwin's from Audio Technica. I think many people will know this brand. We love this brand. Edwin has explored many audio-related projects, and he's been involved in recording, music production, location sound, events related to sound. And right now, he's in his fourth year working at Audio Technica Southeast Asia. He covers the Singapore market in pro audio sales and marketing relations. So I think he'll have a lot to share about audio as far as podcast goes. So let's welcome him to share.
Hello.
Edwin, over to you. We can get going.
Hi, Remus. Hello. Hi.
Cheers.
Just to check my audio levels. Am I loud enough?
Sounds fine to me.
Sounds fine. Okay.
Yeah, Edwin's very particular.
Okay. I'm just not sure from here how loud I am because I'm hearing from my audio interface. So it sounds loud on my headphones right now, and you sound loud as well to me. Yeah, that's cool. All right. So very pleased to be part of this year's Asia Podcast Festival. We've already gone through 3 rounds of workshops, the pod labs, right? Showing everybody, the attendees, as well as the students at the Skate Podcast Plus competition, right? Showing them the basics about how do you get your microphone set up and how do you sound good and prepare yourself for a podcast. So I'm here today to talk in that same category of things. So here at Audio Technica, we have a lot of things to present and a lot of things to share with the community, especially with the growing content creation and as well as the podcasters, right? So we are here actually in Singapore, Audio Technica Southeast Asia. We are located in Singapore in the Ubi Paya Lebar area. So if you do ever want to visit our showroom, we've got a wonderful place here to test out mics and headphones. Do make an appointment with me, and you can come down and test a whole lot of equipment and see what works for you. So here we are actually audio specialists, right? We manufacture microphones, headphones, as well as turntables. We sometimes explaining pictures, specifications, or reviews might not be enough to get you to have a best idea how it will actually sound like, right? So it's actually best to come and hear it for yourself, test it out, hear some comparisons, and you'll actually know what it is. So for today's conference, I'd like to share a few key things, right? So this is the topics that we'll talk about is finding your sound, right? Is a key to the voice identity, right? So does the right mic sound maximize the experience for your listeners, right? For those who are making content creation as well as podcasters, right? We talk about tech and tips to choosing a right microphone, right? The right mic techniques and why voice volume is very important, right? Voice volume in your recordings or your live streams or anything that you're doing with a microphone is very important, right? And after that, I'll close it up with Audio Technica, who has been supporting the ever-growing community, right? Okay, so as us as a focus as a audio manufacturer, we still want to support this community, right? So we'll talk about how we are giving back to the podcast community, right? Okay, some background about me. I'm here at Audio Technica, right? I'm a senior account executive. I cover the roles of sales, tech support, marketing, artists, and content creators, right? The relations with them as well as training, right? So over the years, some of the back before I was here, I was involved in music performances, production, recording, location sound, in video, live sound for music as well, right? So in the recent years, I've a slightly different angle in audio, right? I started to dwell in towards sales, projects, right, marketing and branding, training and education, but it's all in the world of audio. And in the recent years here, AT, of course, will be towards microphones and monitoring, right? So AT will be turning 60 next year, right? And we have a long list of activities, right, and exclusive products that will be coming out for everyone to be part of. So do look out next year. We'll be launching very exciting products and promotions. Right. So as you already know, we manufacture microphones, headphones, and turntables. Right. So where we started, right, our founder, Hideo Matsushita, right, he was actually a curator in a museum where he was taking care of turntables. Right. During the 60s, right, this was actually 1962. There was actually many cartridges, the cartridges that's being built. He wanted to make one, and elevate the level of it. So that's how it was actually born, right? He started. AT was born with cartridges. After which, this same technology, which is transducer technology, actually goes into microphones like the one in front of me, as well as headphones. Also, this is all related, all from the vinyl cartridges, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of vinyl and record players out there. So please keep on collecting our records and keep on listening. You can check out AT Turntables, an exciting range of models to choose from. Right. Of course, here in Singapore, we're actually working closely with musicians, right? Engineers, producers, right? Gamers in recent years, streamers, and of course, podcasters and content creators. Right. So some of the activities that we were actually involved in, right, has been quite diverse, right, across the whole of across the whole globe, right. Okay, so media consumption changes every year, right? Every few years it changes, right? YouTube by indie creators has been there, right? And recently in Singapore and as well as Southeast Asia, podcast and streaming has been growing a lot, right? So AT is always ready to design the right products to enhance the audio experience, right? So I would like to introduce some of the products, right? So for the past 2 decades, AT has developed many products for the world of music for recording, right? And there's as well as recording studios, right? And then home studios in the last 10 years is up and coming and it's always very strong, right? And then we have the instrumentalists as well, the musicians who are instrumentalists, right? The engineers, right? And of course, the passionate hobbyists, right? Who are always exploring different kind of things to match what they need. So we make things such as studio mics and for live mics, which are for very loud volume kind of situations, right? Kind of applications, right? So of course, and for the world of broadcast and TV, right, and video, right, we have sporting products like shotgun mics, commentary headsets. So commentary headset, something like this. Just let me show it on camera. Right, a headset that looks like this, right, with the side boom arm, right, things that looks like this. Right, so this has been around for a while already, but this headset is actually used in Olympics for the last many years, as well as the recent Olympics. And of course, in recent years, headsets like this got caught up with people who do esports. So we see shoutcasters using this. We do see the actual game players who are competing wearing headsets like this, right? So things like this we actually manufacture as well, right? And for commercial sound, we have things like installation venues, right? Halls, lecture rooms, meeting rooms, right? We have wireless mics, clip-on mics, gooseneck microphones. So all this will actually fit into what everybody needs, right? And of course, moving the world of lifestyle, something that we're more familiar with, consumer products is what we call. We have a category of products such as headphones for hi-fi, audiophiles, right? Turntables, I've mentioned that, right? And of course, Bluetooth headphones and true wireless earbuds, which is a very common thing to see nowadays. And of course, the sporting earphones and headphone amps to match this kind of purposes, right? And during COVID, we've actually explored further, right? So we've seen USB mics surge in demand. So USB mics can look something like this. This is a very popular USB microphone. So at the back, I'll just put it near the camera lens. You actually see a USB-C port over there, right? And the traditional microphone port over there. So a USB mic like this, plug and play with one single USB cable, go straight to your smartphone or your laptop, right? And then you can go just like this, right? You wouldn't need a very high-end setup. So things like this has been ever growing, and COVID actually has a big surge in all this when everybody's working from home, studying from home, right? Of course, for all this home-based learning, we also have headsets, right? Which you can also use for trainers, and all this actually covers under the prosumer market, which is a very big segment for us microphone manufacturers nowadays, right? And closer to our hearts, actually, we have content creation, podcasters, right? The products that's actually meant for it. So this market has so much enthusiastic people who really appreciate great audio, right? This market of people are very techy, but they seek for something simple. So like the USB mic plug and play, very straightforward. This mic in front of me called the AT2040, right? It is an XLR cable right over here, which goes into an audio interface. Something simple, somewhat plug and play, not too difficult. You can connect your headphones straight to the interface. For the ATR 2100, you actually have a headphone port at the back. So same thing, you can plug an earphone or headphone to it, and good to go. You can travel, go to hotels, you can podcast from a cafe, or anywhere from a shared office as well, right? So podcasting, is everything that we've been trying to find out more. How do we elevate it, right? So finding your sound is a key factor, right, to your voice identity. So I'm sure you have heard so many of podcasts, your favorite podcast, where the moment you hear the person speaking, that podcast is his signature sound. So sometimes we say that maybe his voice is good, right? His voice has character, he speaks well, which is definitely the basics of what you need. But if that same person was to use another kind of microphone, let's say a laptop microphone, or let's say a true wireless earbud, right? Will they actually sound as solid, right? Will they sound that awesome, right? And they're going to speak a half-hour episode, a 1 hour episode, and then they've got like 100 over episodes over that. Sometimes maybe your listeners will actually grow tired. The ears will actually strain to listen to all this, right? So that identity is actually not as awesome anymore, right? So finding a great microphone is always a key thing, which I feel that there are markets of uh, microphone users or people who speak onto through a microphone. They might actually just take it as a mic. It's just a mic, right? So it's hard to actually educate them. It takes some time, but especially in the world of content creation for podcasting, I feel audio is your number one thing, especially if it's not a video podcast, especially if you're not ultra good looking or anything. Your voice and what you say is very, very important. So why not make your voice even more solid, right? So that's the importance. And Audio Technica is here to actually share, how well you can do it. So for those who actually attended the three podcast sessions earlier on, the podcast workshops, pod labs, right? I'm sure you've really got a hang of it. You've probably started to explore. If you still have questions, do leave it in the Q&A later on about searching a mic that you use or something that you found before and you're not sure why it doesn't sound as expected, right? So finding the right mic does maximize your experience for your listener, right? So give it to them. It doesn't cost a lot to have a basic setup, right? So we covered mic basics, right, during that time. So maybe just as a refresher, microphone basics. If you already have a good mic in front of you, try to keep it close to you, right? Be it a dynamic mic or a condenser mic. Right now, I'm at about 5 centimeters from the mic, so you can actually go closer. I'll just simulate. If I was to go closer, you probably hear a lot much body. So this is probably like the typical sound you hear from a radio DJ. They could be speaking that close, and sometimes they project their voice very well and keep a distance, right? And it still moves. So you can actually explore that. Please don't leave the mic like an arm's length away of you and expect a recording to sound good. So those are some of the mic basics you must have. I also covered topics about acoustics in the room. Of course, we don't have a beautifully treated room. You can use your duvet covers, your blankets, hang it over a clothes rack, put it around you. All right, those basics will actually get your sound to be solid. You don't have so much room sound. I'm actually in office right now. This room is not really treated as glass. I'm on a glass table. I've got a partition wall at the back. If my boss next door was to talk really loud, you can probably hear his voice, right? But the dynamic mic does not pick up so much environment. I've got aircon above me blowing. It's probably on high or something, right? But if I was to change it to a condenser microphone like this, like the AT2020 or the AT2035, right? A microphone like this is a condenser mic, which means it's sensitive, right? So I speak into the mic sideways for this mic. It's not an address mic, it's a side address mic. So a mic like this sounds really very good. It's very crispy, right? It picks out a lot of detail. The pros about it is that you can speak to it at a distance of like 50 centimeters, crank up the gain. It still sound okay, but it's going to pick up your environment a lot. So we covered all that during the workshop. So um, there's nothing wrong with condenser. It's just that if you can actually just use it up close, right? Or use up close in this way, right? Then you just lower the gain, right? And in post production, you can probably have a little bit of noise suppression, to clean up the background sound, but use it tastefully and not too much. Noise suppression and cancellation does alter your overall voice. It wouldn't sound good. All right. So those are the pro and cons, mostly about how this actually works in a microphone world. Right. So we covered things like choosing the right mic. So different microphones actually enhance your voice in a different way. Right. So there are microphones that actually are too boomy, meaning say it's too much low end. Right. So for guys who already have a very deep, low pitch voice, it might be too much. So you could actually choose a mic that has less lows. Vice versa, a person who has a very bright, sibilant voice and the way he pronounces has a lot of S's and T's coming out from his mouth, picking a lot of wind, right? So a condenser mic could actually pick up too much of that detail, right? So same thing like condenser mics, of course, we have many different types. It picks up different amounts of detail. It emphasizes different tones of your voice. So there's some which are very clear. There's some with a texture like some sort of gravy over your voice that will actually help to color the voice. So something you describe as you're looking for color or you're looking for something really very neutral. So it depends on what you're doing. For speech, sometimes it's not so easy to hear the differences, but after a while you get used to it and know which one will actually match. So you can actually search with it. If you're doing a podcast with your various partners, right, or guests, you could be saying, is there one mic that covers everything, and is there one mic that sounds good in everyone? It's kind of yes and no, right? So the rule of thumb is that if your space is not very well acoustically treated, go with a dynamic mic like the AT2040. This will actually not pick up the environment sound, but it will just focus on my voice. It sounds more intimate. It brings your voice closer to your listeners. But if your guests are the kind who do not have mic basics, where they're sitting on the sofa or some sort of high stool and they're going to keep leaning back, and your interview style is there's a person on the left and a person on the right, and then somebody who's really right next to him, and then he'll just turn his voice and look sideways and his voice becomes thin, right? And that happens. And then he turns back this way, it goes back, and then suddenly he comes back and it's very loud. This is going to happen with a dynamic mic, but for a condenser mic, it's more forgiving because it captures a wider space. So when they're moving their heads so much, it's not going to make that much of a difference, right? So things like this would actually matter besides the tone of the voice, right? For the world of podcasting, dynamic mics, there's a lot around. Some of you already have it. Little nuances and differences in it in the mid range of the voice. It brings out certain tone in the throat that could actually enhance your voice, right? You could search for that. All right. So all this is covers in the area of podcasting, right? So let me see. Just let me take a quick chat. Look at the chat. Right. So okay, I'm sorry I didn't see the comment just now. I'll just raise up my mic gain a little bit more. Right. So I'm sorry I've been a little bit soft early on. Right. So I didn't have the habit of opening up the chat group. Yeah. So okay. All right. So those are the microphones that we've been covering. So headphones, right? So headphones, there's why do some people podcast without a headphone and some podcast with a headphone if they're doing a recording, right? So um what do you call, the headphones will actually help your listeners and your guests. Sorry, not your listeners. The podcast will your headphones will help your co-podcasters, right? Your partners and your guests, right? Hear their own voice in the microphone. Right. So when this happens, they actually know whether how loud their voice is or how far they are moving away from their microphone. They could be leaning back. So this microphone will give a good monitoring reference to them to maintain the voice at the normal level. Because the last thing you want is somebody who is loud soft for the half an hour, and then you have to keep adjusting it on the go in post editing. So you probably need a headphone to actually help them. Some do podcasts without the headphone because they want to be free of something on their ears. They don't want to mess up their hair or something like that. But when that happens, you do have to keep them in mind to actually keep close to the microphone, right? So yeah, that's for the headphones. And there's different kinds of headphones around. So like something like what I'm wearing, which is the M50X, right? This is an over-ear headphone. Just let me bring it to a camera. So you can see the ear pads are quite big. So over ear happens when your ears actually go inside, right? And it sits outside of your ear and it rests on the side of your head, right? So it rests on the side of your head, right? There's other styles which are on ear, right, which actually sits on your ear. So some prefer that because it's cooler as a preference thing, but at least choose something that's a professional monitoring headphone to give you a good reference. When you go out and buy off the shelf headphones or earphones, those are very, very colored. It's meant for entertainment, right? It's meant to give you extra brightness, extra bass, right? So if you're going to use that for your monitoring for podcast or even for your mixing for post production, it's not going to give you an accurate reference to how your voice should sound, because some of you, I'm sure, will explore equalization, EQ of your voice in your editing, right, to actually make it sound good. So you have to get used to what's the reference of the sound, right? You get a good pair of headphones, listen to your favorite podcast, and after that try to match your own voice EQ to match that, right? So those are the one of the ways to actually get it. With that, something that's quite neutral, right? Like a proper monitoring headphone. This matters because you do not want to edit it. For, so let's give example, if I was to accidentally buy a really bass heavy headphone, right, for dance music, and then I'm editing the podcast, which has a lot of male voices, and then suddenly I feel like it's too much bass. And in my software, I start to cut the lows, right? And then after it's done, I publish it, go on to Spotify, and everybody's saying, hey, it sounds weird. Everybody sounds really very thin, right? Why do the guys don't have the body of the voice, right? And then you didn't realize it's the headphones that's giving you a false sense of sound, uh, sound tone, right? So you don't want to do that. So something that is neutral, you can read it up. Of course, AT has a wide range of M series headphones. So this is the M50X. We have 20, 30, 40, 60, 70, R70X open back as well. So many to choose from. These are actually designed for musicians, engineers, as well as content creators, right? So that really is a key thing. Of course, coming to speakers, we don't make speakers, but a good pair of speakers meant for production, right, will actually be useful to give you an accurate response. Please don't use multimedia speakers because those are really, they distort very easily and they sound, we're not sure what's going on. It might not be a good reference. And of course, after all that, you can play out from your laptop speakers just to get an idea how clear is it, because your listeners might be listening through a laptop speaker or even your smartphone speaker. You could have that as a reference as well. So I guess that's some of the ways to do it. Yeah, so if you have any questions about equipment and how you're going to do your audio setup or what you already have, do drop some questions in the Q&A, right? And let me know what I can help with, right? So it's very interesting in the world of sound actually. So um, right, there's so much to actually explore, right? Some of you might be already be very familiar with voice over recording, for example. So voice over recording works a little bit different from podcasting, right? Voice over recording usually has the chance to retake and retake and retake and take 30, take 40, and then they could be setting up in a nice studio or a home studio that is acoustically treated, right? And then they speak well. They have a script in front of them. So that delivery is very much different from a podcast, right? Like the stuff we see on TV, those are all voiceovers. Adverts we see online, those are all voiceovers. They are trained speakers. They know how to project their voice. They know how to keep distance from their mouth. They know when to move back from their voice. They know how to pronounce and to control their words, for things that do not sound nice. And they could also be working with a producer, engineer, advertising agent who actually will be curating the way they speak and slowing down their voice, speeding up their voice, right? And there's probably just one person, right? So when it comes to podcasting, it's somewhat live, right? You do have some posts, but it's going to go as what it is. The flow is going to move what it is. Not going to do as much cuts as you watch a YouTube video, right? And then you don't have time to think sometimes, and somebody is a to and fro thing between you and your guest, and then you just blurt out something. So sometimes you might speak too fast, right? Sometimes your choice of words might not be right. Sometimes you mumble, right? And the worst part about all that is actually volume, right? It's something that I do notice in today's content that people are not mindful to volume. So just like myself, just now I didn't make my mic loud enough, right? So I probably needed someone to tell me, in which thank you Yanling, you told me that it was not loud enough. So same thing when you're recording, right? You might be monitoring everybody's voice and not realizing, paying attention that one of your guest voice was very soft. His microphone was very, very soft. So that goes through your recording. And sometimes you are, some of these content creators are unable to actually identify that the other person's voice was soft. So we actually hear a lot of content on YouTube, on Spotify, right, or on social media where someone's talking, right? The two people are very loud, one person is very soft, right? And then they laugh, the voice distorts, is super loud, and then this person is like talking. You can see the person's talking at the same volume, but it's very soft. So it's loud, soft all the way, right? Be it an interview, it's actually not very pleasant. So the importance of volume is a key thing, right? Referencing everyone's volume to a certain level is first. Making sure everyone's volume is the same after that is also important. So of course, if you can do it in post, do fix it. Listen it. Don't listen to the master volume too loud. Turn it soft and hear through everybody who's speaking. So identify who is soft. There might be segments where the person had leaned back and then the voice had become soft. Right, you have to correct that. So it's always nice to hear that. So for those who have done TV and video for broadcast or commercial work, you probably know that volume levels are very, very important, and there's so much software to actually help you with that. There's so much things to read up about that, and they're so key about that. So that was the old days, right? Where volume is everything. And then if you were to send off work to be broadcasted on TV last time, there's somebody out there checking all your levels and making sure it's not over too loud or too soft. And then, if you feel it comes back, you have to redo it, export it, send it out again, right? So that's the world of TV, right? So in the world of podcasting and the world of YouTube and Spotify, there isn't any, you can Google it and get a level, but there isn't anything live to actually show you once you upload that, hey, you're too soft or too loud. End up your listeners are not sure, right? We have some of these which have advertisements playing in the background, in between. For example, like on Twitch or YouTube, right? The advertisement is super loud, and then your actual content is super soft, right? So your listeners are listening to you and you are soft, and they crank up their volume, and suddenly advertisement come out, and then they get fright, kind of thing. And then they're like, whoa, so loud, kind of thing. So that happens every day to everyone on so much content. So it's I think it probably annoys a lot of listeners that nobody's actually watching these levels, especially YouTube, right? So perhaps we can work towards that goal of fixing our levels to be loud and to a certain reference, right? So yeah, that's something about volume that is a key thing, right? Clarity, of course, is there. If you do use a microphone that's not very clear, or you didn't record it in the right way, there's no clarity. Even though if you crank up the volume very, very loud, it's still going to sound not really very good, right? So just let me look at the chat group right now. So some just give me a second. Right. So I've got a question here from the interesting name you have. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. The Balut Kiki project, right? So it says, "Hi Edwin, we have an AT mic that we stopped using because we couldn't get rid of the hum. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. People say it's due to the mic being grounded. Do you have any suggestions to fix this?" Right. Okay. Thanks for bringing this up. Firstly, may I know, is it a condenser mic or a dynamic mic? Is it like the AT2020, or is it some sort of handheld mic? Right. First off, that. So if it's a condenser mic, there's actually phantom power being turned on in your mixer or your interface that actually powers the mic. If you are using audio interface, could you try out with another audio interface and see if that hum goes away? It could be that, right? Secondly, it's actually no audio interface. All right. So I suppose it's through a mixer, or it's probably a USB mic, right? So if it's through a mixer, same thing, you can check the mixer, right? Okay, it's a USB mic. I've got the answer. So a USB mic, I'm assuming is the AT2020 USB plus, or that silver color ATR 2500. I did see before on someone's MacBook that when his power charger is plugged in and the power is on, it creates some sort of hum. The moment you unplug the power, the hum went away. That's one. If it still happens, do try another USB cable for me. Let me know if that works. Try it on somebody else's laptop as well. If it still has a hum, I believe there's something wrong with the microphone. To bring it into our service center in Ubi area, and we'll check it out for you, right? So I'll just take note of your name, and then yeah, please, I'd like to fix it for you. Yeah, awesome, cool. Yes. So coming to my next part, okay, so for ATC, Audio Technica Southeast Asia, some background is that uh, although we are a manufacturer, we've been supporting the Southeast Asian and as well as the Singapore community of musicians and content creators for a number of years. So 8 years ago, we started reaching out to these musicians, right, and singers who are actually gigging out in bars and clubs, right? And as well as home recording musicians, we reached out to them to introduce to them our range of handheld mics, instrument mics for singing, right? So we felt that this collaboration and partnership with them actually helped elevate the sound experience, because we went to them and asked them like, did you know about our microphones, did you know about our headphones, our stage in-ear monitors, how about giving our mics a try, right, our products a try. So that relationship grew from there. We made many friends from there, and we are still in contact with lots of them, and they are big AT fans right now. Over the years, they've bought a lot of gear. They explored a lot of things. Some of them have progressed to being producers full time, creating music. So that's one of the things that we've been giving back to the community to actually help elevate the experience, because some of them do not have a music background, audio engineering production background. They actually learn it from scratch. So why not show them the different ways to actually do it. So in recent years, content creation has caught up. We do work with YouTubers as well to show them what other forms of video mics they can have, wireless microphones for interviews they can have, people who are doing location sound, things like that. And right now is podcasters. For the last few years, we've been growing and getting to know many podcasters in Singapore, right? So a lot of them they just want to speak, right? They might not know what's the best way, so they come to us, and then we actually meet them and show them like, hey, why don't you try out this mic versus this versus that? Why don't you hear this versus that? And then we actually see their eyes um brighten up. There's a sparkle in their eyes, and a light bulb went up in their head. Kind of thing is like, oh, you mean I'm supposed to sound like this? Wow, I didn't know I can sound like that. Kind of thing is, like, oh, I do realize this sounds better, that sounds good but different. So we've worked with so many podcasters, and showed them the different ways to do it. So this educating is, I think, a very key thing to grow this community, right? And from there, they'll go off to teach their friends and to share with their friends what's the good way to do it, what are the ways to avoid it. That's something I think is a very valuable thing that as a manufacturer we are giving back. So some just a quick mention to some of the podcasters we've been working very closely. Big thank you to all of them for supporting AT so much, right? We've heard so much of their content go out on YouTube and Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Hearing the voice through AT mics makes our day, right? We hear that they sound so good, from the previous episodes where they were using something more basic, right? This really makes the audience very engaged, from what we hear. So in recent years, we've been working closely with Overthink. They have a YouTube as well as Spotify podcast. It's called In My Opinion, right? And another channel where they have is called HTHT. So do check them out, right? As well as some of y'all probably are listening, Ghost Maps, Singapore Ghost Maps. So it's an audio drama, right? Telling real stories about actual ghost stories in Singapore as well as Southeast Asia. So that podcast actually uses condenser microphones. And I think in recent years, the BP40, which is this microphone over here, right? So it was condenser microphones was a key thing, and they really like the crispy sound. The person speaks really close to the microphone, and it really makes you very close to his actual story. So it's very scary. Do check that out as well, right? So And then we have RRSG, which is randomly relatable Singapore. So a trio who speaks very interesting topics here in Singapore about what's the latest trend, what's going on, what's the latest argument about something, right? And then we have Just So We're Clear, which is Hanli Hofer as well as Marisa True, uh, talk about more female-centric topics, right? And Making of Motherhood, which is Bree and Sharon, for all the mothers and families out there who want to understand more about growing a family, you can check it out, right? And then we have Zirap, a young group of guys who have just joined us recently, Pretty Please, right, with a channel called Chimey Beach, right? Very interesting topics, trendy topics in Singapore. And of course, in last year, we had some close relationships and worked and supported like SGAG. They started a podcast series, right? And then we have NAS Talks with NAS Daily, right? As well as Titan Media, right? So these are some of the people we've been giving back to the community. And I think we've seen them grow a lot, and we're very happy to always be there with them, right? So another mic to mention is actually this BP40 over there. So for those podcasters who've already been doing for a long time and you want to elevate your voice a lot much more, I would recommend this microphone BP40. Right, so this is a lovely microphone. So this is actually the big brother of this mic, the AT2040. So this mic came out some years back. It was actually designed for radio DJs and broadcasters, right? So it's a dynamic large diaphragm microphone. The 2040 is also a dynamic large diaphragm microphone, but this mic is on the premium range, right? That it costs a little bit more, right? So versus this mic, which is like a 3 times lower the price, right? So this mic was designed for on air, right? People are speaking on a radio, so it is really lovely sounding, right? Here in Singapore, the radio station, MediaCorp Radio, so the whole radio station is actually using this same mic. So the voices you hear on air every day is actually this microphone. So we're very happy to have all the DJs enjoy this mic very much. So interesting story is that this setup is of course complicated. With a on-air radio mixer in the studio. When COVID happened, a lot of them were being sent home to broadcast on air. So a lot of them didn't have a full-fledged microphone. So at first we thought they would be asked to bring back this microphone with an audio interface, but it seems like it could be a bit tricky to actually have an audio interface and a mic set up in their homes. So they said they wanted a plug and play. So back to the 2100, the USB mic plug and play. So this mic actually served really very well to many of them going on air. So it took us by surprise that they went on air with this microphone, which is a $128 microphone, right? Matching up to the other broadcast mic, which is a $500 mic, right? So I was driving around a lot, listening to the radio in the last year, and they will be broadcasting one at home, one DJ will be on in the studio, right? So with BP40 and the 2100 side by side, on air, it actually sounded very, very close. So that was something very impressive. So yeah, so if you want an upgrade, do check out the BP40, right? It's a lovely mic for voice. We found out singers really love it right now, so they've been doing a lot of studio records with that, and the creative producers will be using it for like a kick drum mic. So it's very flexible. And a special story will be for those who like motorbike racing, MotoGP, right? So MotoGP, the starting race, we have all that, I don't know, 15 to 20 bikes revving their engines at the loudest volumes you can take, right? So they wanted to mic up that sound of the starting grid before the mics go off. They found out that putting a few BP40s there, it could sound good and also take the sound pressure levels. So some interesting stories there. Yeah. So yes, let's see if we have any other questions around here. We have a Q&A, right? So from Manwai. So Manwai says, hi, AT has a wide range of
Yeah,
turntables from...
I can do the Q&A for you.
Oh, okay, sure,
That's,
sure.
that's
Okay.
what I'm here for. Yeah, anyway, you're reading. Does AT have any plans to make their own line of external phono preamps for turntables? I noticed that have AT headphone amps and DAC for the audiophile headphones. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yes, we do have our own line of external phono preamps, but it's probably not marketed enough. We have one. I suddenly forgot the name, where it actually is RCA in and out. So it's actually meant to be a switching preamp for people who both have the MC cartridge as well as the MM cartridge, moving coil and moving magnet cartridges, different kind of electronics, right? So there is a switchable preamp for that. So if not, the internal preamps in the current models are improved, right? They're less noisy, right? That's one way of working with it. So yeah, we can check that out, right? So okay, another one. There's no, the answered one is the other one. Okay, so the other Ramus, there's another question. Is actually in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
answered, right?
I clicked wrong. Hang on. Wait, it's okay. It says this. Hi, AT has a wide range of turntables from amateur to semi-pro. I've been using my first gen AT LP120 USB for many years and very happy with it.
Oh,
There's
great,
not a
great.
question. Is that a question?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably just
Yeah.
a nice comment. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, the LP120 is that classic look, and it serves very well. And sounds great as well. So, turntables in the same, it works a little bit different from microphones, but the platter that the vinyl sits on matters. The whole frame that everything sits on matters. The rubber below it matters. Of course, the cartridges, there's so many different types. Go to the website and check it out. They actually have different kind of enhancements for music. So you actually increase mid-range to bring out the voice, or is listening to rock songs, you increase more bass and become more warm sounding. And then some people who want to hear classical, they hear detail. You have a different cartridge to enhance just the clarity, right? And then you will have different kind of stereo spectrums to have sound separation to hear the layers of music. So those are some of the many cartridges that we have that add to it lah. So of course, in the hi-fi world, that's so much to explore, right? So yeah, it's always nice to see AT keep coming out with new things and interesting products. Yeah,
Does anyone have any other questions for Edwin over here?
nice.
Great. I think this. I think we can kind of conclude this session already.
Okay.
It's very informative
That's
as
great.
far as all these things go. I've got a lot to learn.
Ramus, you are you a producer for films and video, right?
Yeah, my background is primarily with film and video.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's actually something that is a close part of me. In my earlier years, I was doing a lot of video. I didn't get to do film, of course. I was doing location sound a lot. So location sound for video is such a different approach and all that. So I'm sure you work with a lot of location sound guys. Do you find it hard to actually capture the real sound of your films and use that actual sound, or a lot of post production is actually necessary?
Well, I've been very fortunate to work with very good sound designers in Singapore, lah. And I think Ting Li, I don't know if you know who she is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she does sound design for a lot of projects here. And it really makes the film, lah. We, especially for animated films that I've done, the sound design kind of is more than 50% of the piece. Because I'm just sharing that there's this animation project I'm working on where it's not fully illustrated as far as frames go, but sound design actually fills the gaps completely.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. It's very different. It's very different.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine. So if that part was missing, for example, if let's say you didn't have the budget, or you they didn't have a brief for you to have emphasis on that, that the visuals are there, but it might not be as
It won't
solid
work.
anymore, right?
It
It
won't
won't
work.
work at all.
Yeah, it won't work.
That
Yeah, it's
important,
amazing.
right?
Great, great.
Yeah. I've heard about that for horror films as well. So like Yellow Box, Rennie Gomez there, he specializes in making soundscapes for horror films and all that. So he was doing Foley and a lot of using sound libraries and everything. So it's really a very, very key thing to make it. So yeah, the loud booms and the strong effects and the weird ambient sounds, it makes it.
Ambient sounds especially. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Because
But
without
won't these like apply as well to narrative podcasts that use, like, for example, horror podcasts or story podcasts? Some of the guests that do wonderful narrative podcasts do very incredible sound design and all that as well.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that will apply too, right? I'm just
Yeah,
just wondering
that will
about
apply
it.
to. And they do it because they understand that without it, it's like missing, it's not intriguing enough, it's not attractive enough, right? So they go out and find the right sounds that match it. So especially for narratives
Actually, since we have time, like 10 minutes more, right? Maybe you can share more like for such podcasters, what kind of sound considerations they can have to capture these Foley or SFX that you can call. I think that'd be very useful for narrative podcasters.
Okay, that's cool. That's a good question. Okay, so assuming your listeners are gonna be faithful in listening with a pair of headphones or earphones, meaning say two sides, right? Not from a speaker phone, right? Or not from a laptop, because this makes it mono, right? A laptop makes it mono. There are some laptops with stereo, right? Using the stereo effects will help engulf, what's the word to use? Really clamp them up into the world that you want to put them in. So that kind of stereo soundscapes and ambience is a key thing to capture them. So if they want to record their own Foley and their own ambience, if you go out with a mono microphone or this, you can catch it. But when you're going to mix it and just clean without using much software, it's just going to stay in the center, right? And then you can do panning left and right? That's one way they can do it and to catch them, right? But what if it was a stereo microphone that actually really captures the ambience? So if they were to go to a certain forest where they in Singapore or wherever they are and captured, there's a lot of insect sounds or certain sounds you hear in the night that could work. Why not get a stereo microphone? So I don't have it with me right now. Stereo microphones that actually have two capsules inside, right? They will pick up the left area, the sphere, as well as the right sphere, right? This will translate into two channels in the recording mixer, right? And then in this will actually really capture what your ears are listening there. You actually capture the real sounds. And if you're, of course, if the space moves, right, and the really in front of you moves left and right, it's going to translate into your recording as well. And you can put it in a layer into your podcast narrative, right? This gives you the whole realistic effect, right? So that's one of the ways you can use a stereo microphone, right? Of course, there are certain kind of surround microphones around, right? They could explore that as well. I would say probably go with condensers for those, because you can capture it at a distance, right? If it's let's say not a horror, is you want to record market sounds, right? You want to capture the real sounds of people packing and cooking and everything. A condenser mic will pick up sounds from a distance. This is when it's a advantage, right? You don't need to step too near to people, and make them feel weird. You're pointing a mic at them. You can capture it at a distance, right? Condenser shotguns would probably work as well. Shotgun mics are like thin, long microphones that you can point at a long distance, right? Those are the ways they can actually capture it, lah. Yeah, yeah.
Andy, and these are also cost-effective ways to do the job. I imagine.
Yes, yeah, that's cost effective ways, definitely. Stereo microphones usually tend to cost a bit more. Shotgun microphones, we have the mid-range type, which are like just over $300 ones. I wouldn't ask to use the broadcast ones, which cost 1,000. Those are used in Olympics, and all that. So yeah, I think those are still cost effective.
That's interesting because I think the next speaker is a horror
Oh,
podcaster
okay.
using audio.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it'd be best to hear how he's been doing it, how he layers does he go out and get real sounds?
Sure.
Yeah. So I
Sure.
think that's always very
Great.
interesting. Yeah.
So thank you for your time. I'll have to conclude this to move along the program.
Okay.
Uh, super. So round of applause for Edwin
Thank you.
for his time and expertise. I've heard that Audio Technica really supports the podcasting scene here a lot. Yeah. So yep.
Please.
Thank you very much, Edwin.
Okay. Thank you, Remus. Thank
Have a
you,
good
everyone.
dinner. It's dinner time.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye bye.
All right.